Hello folks, Phil Gallagher, aka ThrabenU here for a fundraiser. Now, I'm going to do the same plug at the beginning of every one of my videos this week, so if you've already seen this plug, feel free to use the timestamps down below to just skip to the video. This week, I am partnering with Mental Misplay, Bosch and Roll, Anna Margaret, Eliana, Manicurs, Caleb D, Scrybabies, and the Lords of Limited, and we are taking the initiative for Trans Lifeline. All of these content creators will be raising money for Trans Lifeline this week, and the wonderful Mental Misplay, aka Alan, is going to be matching whatever we fundraise. One of the biggest things that I try to do with my content is kind of keep things cozy, and I have a bunch of, stuffed animals and such behind me to kind of exemplify that. But a lot of times for people, especially if you're part of a marginalized group, things aren't cozy. There's a lot of violent rhetoric out there. There's active discrimination. Sometimes someone's not sure whether or not they're going to get critical medicine they need, or whether or not some law is going to be passed that just totally changes their life in a heartbeat. And sometimes those people need someone to talk to. And this is where Trans Lifeline comes in. This is a trans-led organization that gives trans people somewhere that they can call at any hour of the day when they need help about something. And they can give you real advice because they have had a lot of the same first-hand experiences that you have. They have been through the things that you've been through. And this is a safe place that they can call. No one's going to call the cops on you. No one is going to report you for the things that you say here. And it gives these people a space that they can be themselves in when they are in a moment of crisis. So all these content creators who are working together on taking the initiative for Trans Lifeline are hoping to raise a total of $10,000. And we're going to set stretch goals up to $15,000 because we know the Magic the Gathering community can really come through when it counts. Down below, the very first thing in the video description is going to be a link to our Tiltify, which is where you can donate as a part of this fundraiser. For every $2 that you donate, you will gain 1 entry towards the various prizes that we are going to set as donation incentives. There's a ton of secret lairs, commander deck lists, a one-on-one tutoring session with some of our content creators, and as stretch goals, Brian, Bosch and Roll, and I have even guaranteed that we will do a bonus Saturday video. That's right, 6-day-a-week legacy content. Now, if you donate, please make sure you add some of your contact information so that we can give you the prizes that you do win. So check out the Tiltify link down below if you are interested in donating towards this cause and potentially winning some really sweet prizes. Thank you all for your patience. I wouldn't take the time out of my videos unless this was a cause that was really important to me. And remember, anything that you donate will be matched, so it's really like you're donating twice as much. All right, let's go on to the magic now. Hello folks, Phil Gallagher, aka ThrabenU here for another legacy video, and let's just have a chat for a minute about Stompy, shall we? Delicious. So this week in my episode of the Eternal Glory podcast, I kind of wrote up a whole bunch of notes just conceptually talking about Stompy, and I'm moving one of my decks up in the queue a little bit here because Chris submitted a pretty interesting deck list. And we're going to take the core of 8 cast and just shove it a step further in the Stompy direction than the deck traditionally goes. And I think at this point, I'm just going to bring up the full deck list. So the primary card today that is going to push this deck list more in the Stompy direction than 8 cast usually is Patchwork Automaton, which is a really sweet card to play off an Ancient Tomb on turn 1, especially if you can vomit some number of these 16 free artifacts into play. Now, when I say Stompy, I'm traditionally referring to Ancient Tomb deck lists that often use prison pieces like Magus of the Moon, Chalice of the Void, and things of that nature to buy time for large creatures to beat down. And traditionally, 8-cast isn't like super a Stompy deck list. It's doing something very different that involves recursion, drawing cards, actually doing things on the stack. And the deck is not looking to end the game quickly. But Chris's build here pushes the needle a little bit more in the aggro direction than this deck list normally is. And when you start getting a little bit more aggressive, then access to cards like Palantir of Orthanc as sort of a colorless burn spell start to become pretty attractive, honestly. And if you have an early aggressive threat, let's say that this is on average like a 4/4 or a 5/5 in times where it actually kind of pops off and does the thing, then having some tempo-oriented counterspells can make a lot of sense, right? If your Patchwork Automaton is lava-axing someone every turn, if you Metallic Rebuke a spell, Force of Will a spell, the game is probably pretty close to over. Now, obviously, we're going to give some things up in order to fit in these Patchwork Automatons. And so we're not maxed out on some of the effects that you normally might see in this deck list. We don't have room for Chalice of the Void as a 4 of. There's only 2 of them here, meaning that some of our early game matchups versus combo might suffer slightly. Although if we're playing against something like Doomsday, just having a big, womp you artifact creature is definitely worth something. And you lose out on a little bit of the utility. We don't have something like, say, Psy Master Thopterist in order to go wide and generate a large number of artifacts so that a single removal spell isn't just like very good, whereas it normally would be versus a lot of our creatures. And unfortunately, since Patchwork Automaton is an artifact, it will get caught up in something like a Meltdown that will also take out most of our permanents. I don't think I have anything else too exciting to say about this deck list, so today's video was sponsored by Moxfield.com as well as Cool Stuff Inc. And if you need paper magic cards, check out Cool Stuff Inc. and use promo code ThrabenU to save 5% on your order. Let's battle. All right, looking at this opening hand here, I could go Otawara, Lotus Petal, Automaton, and then not really do anything from there. What if I approach this as an Emry hand? Like land, Shadow Spear, Lotus Petal, sack Lotus Petal to cast Emry on turn 1. Turn 2, I can play Patchwork Automaton. We're paired against a Yorion deck, which might mean Death and Taxes or could mean, some blue nonsense pile. I'm not super excited about this hand. Saga, Petal, Spellbomb, Emry on turn 1. Start making construct tokens on turn 2. Not thrilled. This is basically the same hand as last time around, but I think I am going to keep on 6 rather than trying to fish harder at the end of the day. All right. Leyline Binding deck, probably, with a Triome being the land of choice here. Seat? Would I prefer to cast Seat on turn 1 over playing Urza Saga? I can save my Lotus Petal that way. Yeah, let's slow roll all of this by 1 turn here. So we'll do the 1 mana Emry, Pithing Needle, Baubles I want to see. Oh, just as an aside, the larger, more expansive deck techs with highly edited intros will return next week, but it felt weird to me to do the Trans Lifeline plug into an extended deck tech and not get people into the Magic for that long. So just in case you were curious, that's why those aren't here this week. All right. So my Emry is not great. I'm going to treat Emry as Rishadan Port, and I think be okay with that still, though. Like, if my opponent doesn't bounce it, I get some sick value. I guess I'll play this out. Like random counter spells versus flexibility in drawing versus saving for Patchwork Automaton if I were to randomly draw one. But I'm not going to play a Patchwork Automaton if I find one. Ooh, that's real good. So Emry gets bounced. I'm good with that, honestly. I'm not going to crack this yet, I don't think. We're just going to go this route. And again, I'm just going to keep taxing that Caracas. There's a lot of stuff in the graveyard. Yeah, I'm trying to keep a high artifact count for something like a Kappa Cannoneer. Life from the Loam returns Wasteland. Annoying. So my Urza Sagas are now invalidated. That kind of sucks. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 mana towards like a Kappa Cannoneer. I think I keep the Spell Bomb in play. We're just looking for a 0-cost artifact as my draw. I mean, technically that's a 0-cost artifact, but not what I meant. So we are going to Emry, target Pithing Needle here. I'm going to cast Pithing Needle. I think it is more important that I name Wasteland than Caracas. Let's just stop that nonsense. Play a new Urza Saga. And call it a turn. This is a fun game of Legacy. My opponent reveal a Terminus? Well, they might have drawn it. If they did, they didn't cast it. I love that it is tea season, by the way. It has been hot in North Carolina pretty consistently until like the last week since, I don't know, like late June. Sylvan Library resolves. And we are not bouncing the Emry. Okay. I mean, I'm good with that. Okay, there it goes. That's all right. We may reach the point where I no longer play the Emry out, and I just hold it in hand for Force of Will. I don't know, taxing this land is so strong. It's the white land specifically. I'm gonna stay the course here. Call it a turn. This is cool Sylvan Library art, by the way. I don't understand Magic set symbols anymore, so I can't tell you where this is from. Alright, opponent not losing any life here to the library. Alright, we've got a fetch. Orcish Bowmasters. I think that's fine. Okay. And then you just have a second Orcish Bowmasters. I'm thinking about whether or not I would like to bounce my Emry. Kind of think I just let the Emry go. Like, I'm planning on going through all of this stuff. And short of some sort of dress down nonsense, I think I'm just good. Ah, Emry came back. Wonderful. So these are now 9/9s. Shadow Spear is absolutely the plan here. We're going to equip to the one of these that can attack this turn. It is going to end up being a 10/10 again because I lose one artifact, but then give it +1/+1. 10. All right, opponent just going to soak up a couple points of life there. That's reasonable. They're at 10. I'm at 30. I have a Force of Will available. They are going to need removal spells for the constructs. Again, a dress down type card that can just clear the board is about the scariest thing for me. All right, Delta from my opponent. No bonus Sylvan Library cards either. All right, we're chilling. Otawara. Not like the most interested in that card right at this exact moment. We'll kind of see where this turn cycle goes. Swords to Plowshares. I believe that this is fully worth a Force of Will, because that is the trample-y one. So we'll junk the Emry. Okay. My opponent didn't really do anything that game. Like, it's turn 7. They took lots of game actions. Like, they wastelanded me a couple of times. They Caracas bounced my thing a couple of times, but they didn't really do anything that led to them winning the game. So, what do I want here? My opponent does have Orcish Bowmasters, so my card draw stuff does get slightly worse, and I'm going to need to respect that. I probably am not super interested in Chalice of the Void. It protects against Swords to Plowshares specifically, which is cool. I'm not sure how into that I actually am. This card's pretty damn good as long as my opponent doesn't have Bowmasters. Might play some Dismembers to help out with that card specifically. I'm not the most interested in Force of Negation. It's cool against Life from the Loam specifically. Something like this might be my plan. Aether Spellbomb is like not the best against Bowmasters and maybe other flash creatures that my opponent could have. You know, things like Endurance, so I might not play that. I could play a Might for things like Sylvan Library. I could play a random Fluster as protection for some of my creatures. Like, that is perfectly reasonable. I didn't get to see a lot of my opponent's finishers. Any of them, rather. So, like, I don't know how good Pithing Needle is. Like, is my opponent on Minsc and Boo? Is my opponent, like, very win condition light and is just planning on whacking me 5 times with Yorion? Unclear. Blusterstorm doesn't counter Leyline Binding. I guess this is like something I can tutor up off an Urza Saga that could beat a Leyline Binding, which I'm assuming is over there. I have no plan with this hand. Like, this is a very reasonable set of 7 cards that just has no ability to actually win the game. And I think I need to be the proactive one in this matchup. You know, I think I can see a plan with this hand. It's all coming together. I just see it. We're gonna keep this one, and the only question is, do I keep 2 or 3 copies of Urza Saga? I think 2. So this lets me go Urza Saga, Petal, Patchwork, Bobble on turn 1, and then start funneling mana into Urza Saga after that. It won't be the best versus Wasteland, but otherwise the hand's very strong. Like, Patchwork Automaton is good against Swords to Plowshares style single target removal. Emry versus Patchwork. Patchwork's so much better versus a single removal spell that I think I just go that direction. So we'll Petal. Play this thing. We will Bobble. And, like, there's a real question about whether or not I just cycle this here. I think I'm not going to, and I'm just going to plan on leaving this in play for the whole game, kind of like I did last time around. Like, the early game... Oh, that's a different Triome. The early game before my opponent has 2 mana for Orcish Bowmasters is, like, the best time to crack these cards. Sure. There's the fetch to clear, although it looks like my opponent is not just fetching immediately. Sure. We'll go ahead and just crash in for our 2 points of damage. And we've got a very respectable pair of Urza Saga tokens coming. Again, a Dress Down style card, a Supreme Verdict style card that could just get rid of all these things at the same time is a little rough. And I'm going to do a little dance if I get to double Pithing Needle Misty Rainforest. I want it so bad. All right. New construct. Please, 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 please. Holy shit. Misty Rainforest, Pithing Needle. GG. Ugh, that's illegal. Ugh. 7 damage. Opponent's at 10. New Urza Saga coming. Life's good. I guess don't, like, meltdown me. I mean, that's fine. Like, that's incredibly strong, but fine. Goodbye. Alright, opponent has a new land drop. It makes the Emrys in my hand slightly worse. Not that big of a deal. So, I have 1, 2, 3 artifacts. When I play Lotus Petal, I have 4. When I cast Urza, or sorry, when I activate Urza Saga. I believe that means that doing this with this timing is correct. This means that I can go ahead and Thoughtcast. Yeah, sure. I will get a land drop. We are fine playing an Emry. Again, taxing one of my opponent's 2 mana sources right now is just insane. Sure. Yeah, very happy to take out a Lorien Revealed. That's a land drop for my opponent. We'll play out another Bobble. And pass the turn for now. Is this the Esper one? Yeah, that's the Esper one. Okay, another Lorien Revealed will give my opponent a new land drop, or a Volcanic Island. Access to red is online. And we'll pass the turn. We'll be basically running back my previous line from before. We'll make a giant construct. Is Shadow Spear the best thing here? Just give trample for chump blockers. That's fine. We'll dump a new Emry into play. And then play out a Bobble. We cleared out some draws that I'm not a super huge fan of. I think my opponent is going to need a Meltdown style card. Okay, yeah. I'll look at the top card of your library. It's a land. And then we'll see what's going on in your hand. It's some third Misty. That's hilarious. All right, so unfortunately, I lose out on this stuff, and then the Emry gets bounced. I mean, this is exactly what my opponent needed to win, and they did not cast a cantrip since that Brainstorm. So, you know, my opponent double fetches, triple fetches now that they have the opportunity to. Mystic Sanctuary, put back, Lorien revealed. Yeah, my opponent probably wins this one. I mean, that was very lucky. That's all there is to it, but can't be mad. It's magic. I do get to draw 3 cards here. So, like, I am close to having nothing, but I very easily could pop off this turn, but not with those draws. I'll play out 2 artifacts. I shouldn't have done that for Patchwork Automaton reasons, because I think I just need to keep this to Force of Will Lorien revealed, or Yorion for that matter. All right, yeah, I shouldn't have played these out. That was an objective mistake. I just have to stop the draw 3 here. The Yorion is beatable, especially when there's nothing for it to bounce. It's just a strong creature. But I need some draw 2s or a Kappa Cannoneer or something like that. Yeah, my opponent's drawing Force of Will. Seems good. Come on, draw. Metallic Rebuke's not terrible. My opponent has expensive cards. We'll counter that. Go 1, 2. Pay 1 off Lotus Petal. The Orion's answered. We know my opponent has Scalding Tarn as their last card. Yeah, there's punishment for playing these out. Although I guess they help me improvise, so it's a win some, lose some situation. Somewhat awkwardly here, I need to cast this Mox Opal right now to put this outside of Orcish Bowmaster's pinging it range. A lot of times in the early game, that doesn't matter because of the Ward 2 as protection, but in this game, it very much does. We have answered both the Lorien revealed and the Yorion. Things are going much better than they could have after my opponent drew that Meltdown. Life from the Loam. You may have your Misty Rainforests. They're... Well, actually, if Misty Rainforest represents a second copy of Mystic Sanctuary, that is a problem. This is when you cast an artifact spell, not when you play an artifact. So I think I don't play this out in case a new Meltdown is coming. I just don't want to throw an artifact land into the mix. All right, is there another Mystic Sanctuary? There is. Yep, taking a new Meltdown. I mean, we played around that to the best of our ability. So there's a Misty into the Meltdown. I don't need to play this out yet. So now at this point, how hard the rest of this game is a function of how many actual win conditions my opponent has put into their deck. You know, if there is a copy of Lorien revealed or 2 floating in there that my opponent is going to find, life is pretty bad for me. We're playing Seat now. I think now I'm playing Seat because I start getting into, like, cast Dismember, have mana available for something like a Fluster. All right, yeah, we are just in full draw go mode, which is not good for me. My opponent is at 2. All right, Wasteland plus Life from the Loam is scary. Yeah, because now my opponent can just Life from the Loam it back. Now, my opponent doesn't actually have that many real cards in hand, but it's somewhat likely that one of them could be Force of Will. That is just the wrong timing on that draw, because the Wasteland now stops that. We're just gonna... Actually, if I play this, my opponent will Wasteland it, and then I'm still live for Kappa Cannoneer the next turn. So I will play that, despite how awkward that is. Also, we might be going towards timing out my opponent. Sort of unfortunately, it doesn't look like my opponent's deck has many win conditions. They have milled over the One Ring, as well as a second copy of Wasteland. Yeah, we haven't seen any Uros. We haven't seen 4th Aerlingas. The One Ring is apparently in there. Yeah, that's fine. Yeah, okay. Exact line that I played towards. And we will improvise here. It is unfortunately a Force of Will. That's not surprising. And now these Wastelands are going to make it harder for me to do things like Kappa Cannoneer and Thoughtcast in the future. I think I just continue to play land drops into my opponent's Wasteland. It just sucks. Yep. Okay, there's an actual win condition. We will probably just immediately dismember that. Actually, does that do any good? If I dismember this, I don't take 4 from this, but my opponent just makes a new one, and then I take 4 to it next turn, and I'm still dead. I've used my Pithing Needle. I don't think I can give up this Lotus Petal. I am gonna dismember it. I think I'm just, like, dead, though. Yeah, I'm basically dead. My opponent took a few more game actions, including casting another copy of Meltdown, and then does get to kill me. So we know Minsc Boo is coming, we know the One Ring is coming. Those cards make Force of Negation a little bit better. I did not see Orcish Bowmasters this game, and my dismembers felt pretty bad. Maybe I go in the direction of Force of Negation, because stopping things like Meltdown is so important. I could Hydroblast for Meltdown as well. Hydroblast also happens to hit Minsc Boo. Like, do Hydroblast, Force of Negation. I have not seen any Leyline bindings. Maybe my Haywire Might can go out, and again, just this becomes like Meltdown or Bust game. I mean, this hand just is Urza Saga, the hand. That's fine. Just Urza Saga, Lotus Petal, cast 2 mana Emry on turn 1, have Force of Negation to back up something. I probably don't use a Force of Negation on an individual removal spell because, like, my opponent is playing multiple copies of Meltdown, and, like, thus it is reasonable that they will just find one over the course of this game pretty much every time. We'll see, though. Tropical Island is not a removal spell land. So, am I maximizing my Emry value by playing Patchwork Automaton out of the graveyard at the cost of Urza Saga activations? I don't think so. I think this is just going to be... I'm going to choose Mox Opal. It doesn't give me mana right now, but it will be mana soon. Opponent has priority at the end of turn and it's pausing. Oh, I see. Sure. I don't get to Force of Negation that. That's fine. Opponent lost Sylvan Library in order to do that. And an Island Cycle. So I just get to play a new Urza Saga and cast a Patchwork Automaton from graveyard. This is a-okay with me. Is Emry worth saving in this position? Or does this have to be saved for Meltdown? Once on 3 cards. I lose a lot of aggression if I don't stop this play. I think I'm going to do that at the risk of Meltdown happening this game. Like, if my opponent Meltdowns, I still have Emry. Let's Emry. Are we targeting Patchwork still, now that I've drawn Thoughtcast? I think so. I can target Opal, play Island, cast Thoughtcast as a draw 2. I'm hoping to just do that for 1 mana later anyway. I'm going to play my Urza Saga. No, I don't need to play around days. Alright, play Patchwork Automaton. We're going to bash in for 2. One's at 18. We'll drop a new Urza Saga and call it a turn. I'm hoping to do a 1 mana Thoughtcast next turn. No green mana for the opponent, which is, or sorry, no red mana for the opponent, which is great for me. Oh my gosh, beautiful. So, land drop. Emry. I could Kappa Cannoneer. I don't think that makes sense. Emry, target Mox Opal. Cast Mox Opal. That scales up both of these. Go to combat. Attack for 5. I could make it 6. I don't think I would like to do that. And we've got Force of Will available for a Meltdown. Mystic Sanctuary can put back a Force of Vigor. That's strong. Again, gets stopped by a Force of Will, though, so we're a bit lucky in that regard. I just Force of Will this so my opponent can't draw the Force of Vigor. And then basically kill them. Maybe actually kill them. Let's find out. Okay, yeah, GG's. Today's video is sponsored by Moxfield.com, and I personally keep all of my deck lists for every format on this site. I love that I can go and sort them by types and tags if I need to. There's a lot of different viewing options. It can give you some math about your mana symbol, your curve, and you can even playtest and do sample opening hands with it. Check this site out if you haven't before. It's awesome. I have a reasonable opening hand here that can kind of go a couple of different directions depending on what I draw. Ooh, we are getting griefed. I imagine, yeah, that I lose the Kappa Cannoneer. Then my opponent will reanimate it, take my bauble. Honestly, we're pretty good with all of that happening because, like, Urza Saga was always the plan. So, like, we'll play Urza Saga, play bauble, and I am going to make threats that race and outpace grief pretty easily. My opponent could play another 3-power creature this turn, and things can be a little dicey. But given that I have Shadow Spear coming and 3 artifact lands coming, I think it is still going to be okay. So we'll Ancient Tomb and pass. This one's going to be tight. The Ancient Tomb life loss is very relevant. Ugh. I don't know that I beat that. So I make my token. That actually helps a lot. I make my token. Fetch Shadow Spear. Play Land Drop. Play Lotus Petal. Equip Shadow Spear. The one that can attack. Crash in for 6. My opponent is at 10. They have essentially 9 unblockable, but I'm gaining 6 of that back, so it's really only like I am taking 3 damage per turn cycle. And it's going to be less than that, because I can just like keep deploying artifacts. So my opponent is going to need something like a removal spell to kind of push everything over the edge here. Got Pithing Needle, not the best card here. This is probably Troll of Khazad Doom. I think that's more important than Helm right now. My opponent is in theory just dead. Maybe I still name Helm. They can have the extra land drop. So we attempt to crash in for lethal damage. Orcish Bowmasters occurs. Sure. Oh, and Fatal Push. Sure, that's quite strong. I believe that means that I am dead. I can't re-equip this at instant speed. My opponent goes to 3. I get killed by this stuff. We are barely dead. My opponent's draw was damn near perfect there. I've got some options here. Dismember is reasonable, but is slightly awkward versus, like, I'm usually not paying the colored mana pips for this, so when my opponent has aggressive hands like that one, I'm just not stopping them without taking some incidental damage. I don't think I'm super interested in Chalice. I'm not the most interested in Pithing Needle, or maybe not even Aether Spellbomb. I'll probably keep it for Trolls. Force of Negation is medium. Palantir's fine if my opponent does not actually have Bowmasters or Sheoldred. The Cage is just awkward because I also have Emry. I could Fluster. Fluster stops Reanimate. Fluster stops Fatal Push. I think I'm going to end up playing these. I'm going to try Fluster, but I'm very unsure about these last couple of slots. How do we feel about this? Just turn 1 Urza Saga, dumping a bunch of things into play. That's totally fine. My opponent's discard doesn't interact with this hand at all. So Saga, Shadow Spear, And 2 0-cost artifacts. Not interested in redrawing here. Interested in the raw construct size. Yeah, that's fine. You may take my dismember. Oh, well, that is very strong. Now I'm interested in a redraw. Opponent has a Takenuma, Lotus Petal, and Thoughtcast. So if I play Ancient Tomb and Lotus Petal, that gets me there. So this is a 2-mana Thoughtcast, leaving 1 floating. And this is turn 2, so that was my land drop. Okay. Not a fan. There's the Takenuma that we knew about. I will fluster that, but I'm unhappy about it. Like, it stops a critical card. Like, don't get me wrong, but this is not really how I want this game to be proceeding. Opponent has a Troll of Khazad-dûm. And we've got an answer for it now. Sure. If my opponent has another Reanimate. They do. We're just taking that out immediately. Considering that Mox Opal isn't on, yeah, probably. Goodbye. I'm going to just do this now. Opponent is about to draw Sheoldred. Fantastic. See if we get Bowmastered. Did not get Bowmastered. Drew a blank. Field of Ruin. Okay. Opponent has named Thopter, which is not a thing that my deck does, but which is a thing, god damn it, that my deck, like, very reasonably could be doing. We are just not hitting any gas here. We're not doing a very good... We're not doing a good job of hitting a threat or hitting sort of a relevant play. Sure. That's fine. And we're just going to bounce that out of play. It will very easily be worth the life loss of the Ancient Tomb activation. Fuck me. God damn it. Sure. Baubles suck. Why is anyone playing Baubles in Legacy? Cancel this card. No one play this ever again. I can't hit a live draw to save my life. This brings me to 8. The Sheoldred effectively puts me to 6. And what do you want me to do? I bottomed out so hard there. All right, let's see. So Saga, Petal, Opal requires another artifact in order to do its thing. I could instead start with these 3 cards and hold up turn 1 Metallic Rebuke, play Urza's Saga on turn 2, or maybe Thoughtcast. This hand is not perfect. I think I'm going to keep it and kind of hope that it works out. It is going to be pretty respectable versus a combo deck list, or a deck that, like, very much relies on a strong turn 1 play of some kind. Beseech combo, potentially? Sure. My opponent has seen my Force of Negation. Yep. Not interested in trading a Metallic Rebuke for a Bauble, just random redraw. Ooh, okay. I play Urza's Saga, and from there it's more interesting, because I can do this. I don't think it is correct. I think I am just going to pass the turn here. I think I want to be able to hardcast Metallic Rebuke on something like a Thoughtseize that gets pointed my direction. Just, like, slightly awkward not using my mana if I miss on a land or another artifact, which I guess that is a miss. And that's just awkward. I think I'm passing the turn, though. More Vault of Whispers. Mox Opal's fine. That's a Brainstorm. I'm tempted. I'm not going to do it, but I am tempted. All right, there's the fetch to clear off the Brainstorm. A Cabal Ritual. That is fine, because I'm not just dead to Thoughtseize into relevant spell. LED is fine. There is a Beseech the Mirror. I will counter that. I think I want to do it without using mana, so that I can still just make an Urza Saga token. So let's Force of Negation pitching the Thoughtcast here. Oh, okay. My opponent knew about the Force of Negation in my hand, so like, I thought they were going to like pact me or something there to stop all of that nonsense that I could do. This isn't on right now. So I will just float a mana. Wishclaw Talisman off Pithing Needle is a pretty reasonable play here. So I drop an Ancient Tomb. Opal doesn't do me any good right now. In fact, quite awkward that I have two of them because it's not letting me hardcast a Force of Will. Dark Ritual is fine. Opponent has a lot of mana here. So my opponent can play around Metallic Rebuke. They just have the mana. So we'll Force of Will here. Hope no Veil of Summer as final card. F. So this is now going to lead to Gaia's Will and a deterministic kill. So my opponent is now going to have a Yawgmoth's Will effect in play. They can just cast a couple of rituals, cast Beseech the Mirror again, and Tendrils me, and I will die. So there's all the free stuff from Graveyard, there's the Beseech, and there's the Tendrils. I will concede to that. So I like Fluster, I like Cage, I like Might. Fairy is a reasonable card. Oracles can do some cute things. I don't know that I'm going to go that deep. I'll probably play this. It's not a Shadow Spear matchup for the most part. Although it, my opponent's deck is kind of built to do a very specific amount of damage. We'll think about that. Probably don't need Pithing Needle or Spell Bomb. My cards are just like reasonable. Maybe I don't need Patchwork Automaton. I can just win with Urza Saga or Emry. Well, Emry doesn't literally kill, but Emry recycling Baubles forever is essentially a win. Goes on 0 in this matchup in all likelihood. Although, that's awkward. Let's bring Cage and Might in, so I replace my Urza Saga stuff. And I guess this is just 5 more slots. I could play Palantir, but tapping out for that is a little spooky. Saga. Grafdigger's Cage. Yeah, this is awkward, but usually fine. Saga. Cage. And then we'll play out all the 0 drops. I may or may not end up activating the Bauble. Like, it really depends. A Thoughtseize. I guess it is worth it to Fluster that, so my opponent does not know what, like, that my last card in hand is a dead card. That's fine. I think I want to Bauble in an attempt to hit a land, so I don't have to give up Lotus Petal to activate Urza's Saga. Opponent has a Beseech the Mirror. Surprised Pikachu face. Okay, there is a land. I've gotten my wish. I don't have the immediate blue card for Force of Will. Hopefully that's fine. All right, cool. So we get to make some tokens. I'd love to draw a blue card. Mox Opal number 3. I'm going to hope that I don't need Force of Will up this turn and just vastly accelerate my clock. Opponent plays around Pithing Needle. Haywire Might fine. Haywire Might's fine. Oh, right. Active mistake. Grafdigger's Cage stopped that from happening. Ooh, my opponent's going. It is a fair Beseech the Mirror. If they have something fun. A Song of Creation. So this is the tech to attempt to get around cards like this. So hands off the mouse, F6. We'll see if my opponent can kill me with Song of Creation. They get an additional land drop. And they can actually get to enough Natural Storm that it is reasonable that I may die. 5 mana off Cabal Ritual. And Lion's Eye Diamond can be kind of like a Black Lotus, a risky one, but you can sack... Ooh. Another Beseech the Mirror at Storm of 7? Or a Thoughtseize, sure. They are at 12. or Dark Writ. At this point, another Beseech is lethal for Tendrils. And after a few more 0-drop spells, there is another Beseech. And that'll do it. GG's. Let's see if my top card was a blue card. My top card was a blue card, so if I would have just remembered my Grafdigger's Cage, grabbed a bauble, drawn a card, I would have gotten a blue card to attempt to Force of Will the first Beseech and potentially won that match. Alright, round 4, I don't have any blue mana in this hand, and I can't just start doing Urza Saga nonsense, so this has to go. As long as Emry resolves, this hand is fire. Well, I guess resolves and makes it back around the table. I guess like both of those things do need to happen. So we're going to go Seat, Bauble, play out an Emry. So at this point, I believe I hold both baubles that are currently in my possession. So that on my turn, I can Emry, Mox Opal, cast Patchwork Automaton, and double bauble. Hold on. Well, that's resolving. Now I probably have to crack this bauble to look for a land. What's going on over there? Badlands is a weird card. Grixis Control. Got it. One of my next 2 cards needs to be a mana source. Mission accomplished. So we will Patchwork Automaton and grow it 3 times. My opponent reasonably could be playing Edicts. That will be good against what I just did here. I think I'm going to cash these in. Like, Bowmasters very reasonably, almost certainly, is coming. I think I just want to turn those into new cards, assuming that one of these ends up being a land to activate Urza's Saga. Another Patchwork is interesting. Goodbye, Patchwork. Oh. Why did my opponent keep their hand? They are presumably playing a Grixis control deck. They kept a hand that does not produce blue mana with how they played it. That seems bad. Maybe I'm missing something, but either this was a mulligan or they severely just messed up how they played this one. Yeah, that's unfortunate. Don't show me your hand. Like, don't give me all that information. Now I know, what, 1, 2, 3 other cards in your deck that you hadn't showed me? So, other than something like a sideboarded Meltdown, there probably aren't going to be all that many things that I want to Force of Negation specifically in this matchup, so those cards are probably going. Palantir's in this weird spot where Bowmasters specifically is something that makes it bad. Otherwise, it's quite good against my opponent's deck. Probably going Spellbomb out. I'm probably going to go Pithing Needle out. It may end up coming back for a Game 3 scenario. Hydroblast can trade with Meltdowns. Flusterstorm's a little more versatile than that. You can consider some Dismembers for Bowmasters and the Palantir. I don't think I want Grafdigger's Cage for Snapcaster Mage. I've got 8 cards that I can consider. I have 6 slots as of right now. I think Flusters always come in. And then I think I'm going to leave the Hydroblasts in the board. And just, I don't know, maybe I don't need 3 Dismembers. Like, I don't ever want to draw 2 in a game, I don't think. Maybe we'll do the split here. This is a weird hand. So I can go Saga, Bauble, Bauble, Opal, then Patchwork Automaton. So sequencing is a little rough. I think this hand is improved by enough draws that I just keep it. My opponent is unlikely to be playing very many copies of Wasteland, maybe none. The mana-based requirements of Grixis tend to be a little bit tougher than the requirements of some other control deck variants. That's slow here, but ultimately not bad. We'll cast both Baubles, drop Opal, play Automaton, and I need my artifacts in play for right now, so no cracking the Baubles. A little awkward that this is a 1-1 right now, but again, in the early game, Ward is very much a thing. See what my opponent's doing. Not a him. Strix. A Sheoldred's Edict, sure. That occurs. And again, we'll keep these in play for Metalcraft reasons, at least for now. And Emry. Force of Will is not a bad thing to have access to here. We get to pump out Urza Saga tokens for a while, and then Palantir is our gas afterwards. See what my opponent's got. Hidetsugu consumes all. I would like to say no to that. We have very good Force of Will back. Destroy each non-land permanent with mana value 1 or less. So that is now happening. It's not as bad as it looks, because I get to float a mana here and double crack these baubles. Opponent has a Narset. They're going to have another Hidetsugu consumes all. A little obnoxious. And then I just go ahead and do this. So I get to draw a couple cards here. The construct is unfortunately quite small, and I did not play Haywire Might to just exile these. So now that we know that this is... Or no, my opponent was also playing Snapcaster Mage, right? Don't know that I love that combo. I found that awkward when I was playing this. Well, not this, but a similar deck in the past. Alright, I get my bonus cards. They are not super castable right now. So I'm floating a mana here. I don't even have Metalcraft right now. Awkward. This probably just becomes Palantir. Yeah. Not the biggest fan that it has to happen this way. My opponent takes 2. I am just going to bottom both of those. See how my opponent feels about draw versus damage. They take 2 damage. So the graveyards get nuked. And we might find out whether or not a bug has been fixed. So the way that this is supposed to work is that my opponent cannot legally choose to have me draw a card with this. That is the way that that card is supposed to function. And we'll see whether or not that actually ends up being the case on Magic Online. Opal? Opal's fine. So, I'll land drop. Can't Thoughtcast right now. Oh, I guess we won't see it. I'll just kill Narset. And then I can just have a stronger turn. So, 1 mana Thoughtcast. Followed by 1 mana Thoughtcast. That is an awkward set of cards. I am not interested in Otawara. Ancient Tomb is nice with Urza Saga. If I eat another Hidetsugu consumes all. I think I'm just going to bottom it though. Alright. My opponent mills Kappa Cannoneer and Emry, going to 3 life. So they get a Hidetsugu, which is a 3/3 body. I don't have a blue card to pair with this. So they get to nuke these 2. And they are probably in the situation where they have to let me just keep drawing with Palantir. A Flusterstorm is interesting. I think while my opponent doesn't have cards, I just dismember that. And I imagine every turn for the rest of the game I am now drawing with Palantir. Kappa Cannoneer and Patchwork Automaton. I don't really want to cast either one of those cards right now. I kind of just want more blue cards. Well, I could draw Kappa. Send Patchwork to the bottom. Like, I can just draw Kappa as a blue card for Force of Will, so I have both Force and Fluster backing up this Urza Saga. It's awkward, but I don't hate it. Alright. They did not risk it. Yeah, I think I just want to have Force of Will available for something like an Orcish Bowmasters that could otherwise punish this card. I'm really hoping that I can Fluster something on my opponent's turn. Mulligan's Command. I will Fluster that. I would like my Palantir to stay in play, thank you. And I have a Dismember for the backside of this Hidetsugu consumes all. I'm in a pretty good position, honestly. My opponent is also at 3 life, so any one Urza Saga token connecting is ultimately going to be lethal. Am I willing to play Ancient Tomb this turn? If I play Ancient Tomb this turn, I can deal 6 damage to myself in this turn cycle. How do I feel about that? Honestly, pretty good. I feel pretty good about that. Palantir happens. Fluster? Automaton's bad. Is Fluster an above average draw? I'm not really sure that it is. With Force of Will already in hand. I'm going to bottom that one. Otawara. Sure. That is kind of similar in power level to a Fluster. Alright. My opponent is going in for some 5-drop, and is going to 1 life to make it happen. Oh, I see. They are putting a Culligan's Command on top, and are going to attempt to brainstorm into it or something like that. Well, my opponent's just deterministically dead if I counter this, so, you know. Let's counter it. End of turn, go to 12 for Urza Saga token. And dismember Vessel of the All-Consuming. My opponent is now dead on board. And we win that match. Okay, we have an Urza Saga Ancient Tomb counterspell hand. And we almost have, like, 3 counterspells. I think this is going to end up being okay. It's a little awkward, though. Potentially playing against a blue control deck here. This league has not felt very 8-casty. This league has just felt like, hello, my name is Urza Saga, and I'm here to fuck. That's what this league has felt like to me. We will Lotus Petal. And I think I just get this going immediately. Then, beginning next turn, I have Metallic Rebukes available, because I just activate Urza Saga, then I control 3 artifacts to do my thing, and I'm not expecting a turn 2 play from what I'm presuming is a control deck over there. So do I want a Patchwork Automaton for any reason? I don't think so, because it drops Metallic Rebuke, and like, would potentially force me to use my Force of Will on my own turn, which I'm not a huge fan of. Sure. So that's a shuffle for the Ponder. Followed by Flooded Strand Fetch? I think you can wait on the Flooded Strand. Ah. So, let's activate this. And then I'll Metallic Rebuke that. Note that I don't have to sacrifice my Lotus Petal here. My opponent Force of Wills, pitching Fluster. All Force of Will, right back. And we weather the turn cycle here. And let's work on getting my opponent dead. Aether Spellbomb is a nice safety net here. I think I'm into that. Play Otawara too. I think playing Otawara is fine with this Spellbomb in play. So I'll Patchwork Automaton, play Bobble, throw Automaton, hit my opponent for 7, and have lethal on board for the following turn. They will need to show and tell again, and do so in a way that beats an Aether Spellbomb. Yeah, which is pretty unlikely. Blue-white show and tell. Fluster is fine. Force of Negation is fine. Haywire Might is a thing that is okay to have access to. And if I have some bad cards, I can sub Palantir in. Shadow Spear is pretty mid. Pithing Needle could be relevant, but unless I see like red for sneak attacks, that probably goes. Chalice of the Void is not at its best here. I could also board out a couple of threats reasonably. Like, this does not have to be a Patchwork Automaton matchup. It is one of my better turn 2 clocks to play, like backed by a Metallic Rebuke or whatever. I don't think I want to cut something like Kappa. It's just blue for the force effects. I think these 4 cards need to come in. I don't think I'm going to end up playing this. If I cut the 2 chalices, that's just that. I think that's reasonable when I'm on the draw. And then when I'm on the play, I'll consider playing the chalices again. Yeah, this hand's perfectly reasonable. We'll keep this. Like, this hand goes very hard. You may cantrip. That is a shuffle. Another Fluster. Fantastic. So we drop Patchwork Automaton. We are going to scale it up. And this is 3 artifacts for Metalcraft, meaning that Mox Opal on Flusterstorm is live. And I'm not sure if I'm supposed to go after a cantrip right now. Well, my opponent's not going to cast one, so I don't have to think about it. That's fantastic. I wish I had a second blue mana. That would make this all a little bit better, but I am not unhappy with the current situation. Let's bash in for 4. Opponent's at 16. I now have 3 artifacts for Metalcraft, meaning that I believe that I could go ahead and crack this, and that it is good to do so. Sure. My opponent is potentially just going to do something like Brainstorm anyway. Alright, and they'll fetch away the bad stuff, so they don't have the Ponder that I saw. I get a redraw. Beautiful. Alright, no plays from my opponent. They are under a very large amount of pressure. I just, don't cast that, right? I gain 2 damage this turn. I don't think that matters. They just lose out on damage later. Yeah. Send them in for 5. Swords to Plowshares, targeting one of these, so my opponent can pay the ward cost. I don't believe I flinch here. I think I just let them remove that, take 1. Slows down the clock by a lot, but I think I don't lose this game as long as I don't let my opponent resolve show and tell, so I don't think I want to fight over the wrong thing here. They're at 14. Alright, no movement from my opponent. I'll make some constructs then. I'll make some more constructs. So that's a 4/4, about to become a 5/5. Spellbomb or Haywire Might. I don't think it strongly matters, because I just have Fluster, Force of Will backing everything up. I think I'm going to go with Spellbomb. Spellbomb doesn't get caught by a random sweeper in the same way that a Haywire Might does. And this is my opponent's last turn of life, presumably. Yeah, that's fine. Again, I'm not going to get caught fighting over the wrong thing here. Oh yeah, you can Impulse. This just buys my opponent 1 more turn, but again, this is a hell of a fucking wall of counter magic to try to get through. A Teferi. I will say no to that. How do I say no to that? Force Pitch Force is better at winning a counterspell war, but Force Pitch Fluster gives me greater coverage versus some weird stuff. I don't think I'm that worried about another Teferi happening. Let's just keep double Fluster. Force Pitch Force. We're fighting. I will Fluster Storm your Force of Will. Another Force of Will. My opponent has 1 card remaining in hand. Okay. This is weird. Their top card is not known in any capacity. It is completely random. So what they're telling me is I lose to the 5/5 that's on board. Okay. I mean, message received. And I think the Aether Spellbomb in play will win me the game versus Show and Tell plus random creature. So I think I'm just good. Kappa Cannoneer is not an ideal draw. It gives me 1 more point of damage this turn, though. Or I guess 2 more points of damage. My opponent is at 8. I have very easy lethal damage versus attackers. And we end up with a positive record in this league at a 3-2 finish. This league felt really weird to me, because I don't feel like I fired on all cylinders in very many of my rounds, and it just didn't matter. So what I mean by that is, I stumbled on mana quite a bit, but Urza Saga Ancient Tomb backed by Force of Will is really scary. And it didn't matter when I stumbled in a lot of cases. I didn't just sit there and recur bobbles with Emry very many times. I don't believe I ever resolve or even attempted to cast a Kappa Cannoneer. And this league was just won by pretty much solely Urza Saga. So I'm not really sure how I'm supposed to evaluate this specific build. Patchwork Automaton definitely did some work in some rounds and gave me more good Ancient Tomb openers. But yeah, I don't feel like I did anything other than Urza Saga this league, and maybe that's a little bit of an exaggeration. But for example, against one of the control players, I basically won a game by repeatedly recasting Emry and using Emry as Berschadenport while other things just incidentally happened to kill them because they were stuck on mana. So yeah, I don't know. Let me know in the comments down below, like, your thoughts on this build. I'm sure Chris will appreciate it. Palantir definitely did some work as a sideboard card. The extra counter spells were worth their weight in gold. Dismember, despite being slightly awkward, was good. And I think I boarded in everything except Hurkyl's Recall throughout this matchup. So, like, sideboard feels pretty reasonable at the very least. All right, folks, if you need paper Magic cards, check out Cool Stuff Inc. Use promo code ThrabenU to save 5% on your order, and I hope you all have a wonderful rest of the day. See ya!